He wants them.
So who's going to be playing?
We don't know.
We haven't decided yet. It's all in the up and up. I've got my list down here.
Oh, you have decided now? Okay, so I have to make a decision.
You have to make a decision. Like, think about the link. How do I treat this other Cryx player?
But there's no DLC.
So, yeah, all it goes to Magnus.
Assassination is happening. I guess that's the plan. So it's Denny against Magnus.
Sorry?
Denny1 against Magnus.
Anyone against Magnus? It is.
Let's do some shit.
We roll.
I roll everything in this.
I roll everything on the team.
I've got a +1, so 4. You got a 6 or?
Oh, you guess you know what Denny can do. You can go
My life has no meaning anymore. What? Denny taking the first turn?
This is actually the first time in tournament.
First time you win the roll? Okay. Good time to start winning roll-ups, sir.
I like loading these dice for this.
Yeah, all the positive energies.
Not yet.
Whispering sweet Norwegian soft words.
I make carvings and runes.
The guys at folklore that would actually be we'll allow it. It's official. We'll allow it. It's all good.
Yeah, it's all TV.
So I guess we try the Tiki. Okay, so you lost. You are
Already. So bad.
Unyielding. Okay.
Did you get to play even more Skyro War? I thought you didn't care about this game. Why do I care about that?
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you wherever you are. We are coming to you live from Amsterdam from the ClogCon2017 Masters Tournament. We are in round 5 in the top of 4. Today we will be looking at 2 players. On the left hand side we have Wout Marshall, and on the right hand side we have Jonas Brand. I will just be adjusting the graphics, but I can tell you that in this top 4 we feature 3 Cryx players and 1 plucky mercenary player who has so far managed to get by in this tournament with his strategy of dodging Cryx, but has now run out of space to dodge. So, on the left-hand side of the table, unpacking his tokens, we see Wout Marshall. He is going to be playing a Magnus 2 list.
Activated his assassination run in the wrong way.
And across the board from him, I was making sure that Magnus is spelled correctly. Across the board from him is Jonas Brand, who will once again be playing Denny1 on this, not only on the same table but on the same table side as before. Fortunately, we have altered the terrain, or the judges have altered the terrain on the battlefield to take this into account so that Jonas does not have an unfair advantage having prior knowledge of the terrain features. And in just a second, once we have the graphical elements sorted out correctly, we can take an in-depth look at what the players have brought. We can take a quick peek at the scenario that they will be playing, and we can take a look at what consequences this will have for their playstyle. So taking a look at the scenario first. In the scenario, we will be playing number 4, which is Breakdown, which is also known as the barbell scenario, featuring one central rectangular zone which can be controlled by warjacks, battle engines and warcasters for one control point, and then we have the 2 flanking adjacent circular zones that can be controlled by infantry and warcasters for one control point a turn. All 3 of these objective zones are on the midline between the 2 players, meaning that factions that have an inherent speed advantage can often put themselves in a position where they are able to push their opponent out of the scenario zones in the very early game, and thus take an early scenario lead. I'll just be adjusting the camera to make sure we get a more equal view.
Yeah, there's like no incentive for you to play on the sides here because scenario is there's no points over here.
This is super legit. Maybe you should do like
Commentary? I'll just be super sarcastic.
You should do commentary.
Oh shit.
Oh wow.
Denny1, I wonder what she does. We have another commentator for you.
No.
Nico, yeah, go on, Nico.
Can you move the clock a little bit closer to
Yeah, but I'll probably be running over here.
It'll probably be running there. If you leave it there. Okay, that position is great. You can even move it a little bit back from that point. A little bit more forward. There, perfect. Thank you.
He said a little bit back, Jonas. God damn it, man.
Pull it all the way out and then...
So yours truly just instructing the players on the correct positioning of their death clock to make sure that you, the viewers at home, have an adequate view. Whenever one is playing Cryx, especially the kind of army that Jonas has, obviously clock management is always of importance, and every action that you do, you are sacrificing the time left on your clock, and every action is weighed whether or not it can help you win or whether or not you're just treading water and pushing empty space for all intents and purposes. So the player is now ready to deploy their armies, having laid out their deployment and advanced deployment lines. So let's use this time to take a look at the armies that they have brought. So it looks like who has the first turn? Jonas will be having the first turn. Finally, after having finally won it after many games of going second, but still winning, Jonas will be bringing his Denegro 1 out of theme, and he is continuously asked the question by all of his opponents why he is not playing Ghost Fleet. And to which he replies he does not enjoy playing Ghost Fleet, and he thinks he has played it too much at the WTC, and he thinks they are totally lame. So he has decided to snowflake this Denny1 list into the top 4, bringing 2 Death Rippers, 2 Stalkers, 2 maximum units of Satixus Raiders with their respective UAs, a unit of Blood Witches with their UA, which inevitably will be ambushed, and a unit of Satixus Gunslingers, bringing the full 4-unit Satixus boat, which he tops off with a unit of Max Crows and a Ragman. On the left side of the table we have Wout Marshalk, the one and only hope remaining for all War Machine and Hordes players who don't play Cryx and who don't enjoy playing Cryx. He is bringing his Magnus 2 in the Regulus theme, where he brings with him a Reinhardt, 3 Nomads, 2 Renegades as his battle group. He has an Anastasia Debray, he has an Iris 1 which is free, he has an Arish which is also free, he has a Hutchuk which surprisingly is free, he has an Orin which he actually paid for, he has a max unit of Idrians with the UA, and he has an Ayana Halt and 2 units of Kayazi Eliminators. So Wout has mainly made it this far in the tournament by successfully implementing a very cohesive strategy of dodging Cryx in the matchup process, and as a result he's managed to somehow blag his way into the top 4 of this tournament. Unfortunately, the other 3 players in this pairing were all Cryx, which means that his strategy has now hit somewhat of a snag, and he may have to apply his alternate strategy of rolling dice well in order to steal victory from the jaws of defeat. Jonas is currently deploying his Satixus Raiders in his well-known one long line strategy, where he applies their significant initial threat range from their high movement capabilities combined with their long reach on their melee weapons, which he flanks on either side, above and below, with an arc node to allow him to cover the entire width of the table with any required spell support from Denegro. Notable being the absence of the Blood Witches, and other than that, a fairly standard symmetrical deployment, allowing Jonas the ability to push to either side based on how Wout deploys his units. So Wout is currently favoring a 2-and-1 nomad deployment, having 2 nomads pushing in the direction of the right, 1 nomad pushing ahead on the left.
That's why I'm here to hold. We can push them all up the right. Why are you here, sir?
Once everyone is deployed, I will go and check the table personally to mark out for you guys the exact location of very specific solos and casters, whilst we watch Jonas deploy his Stalkers and his Crow's Cutthroats. So Jonas showing a slight lean to the right here, just a little bit of right-handed professional tendency. It's natural, to be honest. All men have it in some degree, and Jonas happens to favor the right in this particular case. Now the question is whether or not Wout will symmetrically match that, or whether he will decide to go for a refused flank approach, which is a commonly used stratagem whereby you put your strongest elements in one flank, heavily pushing that side, and then trying to hold the middle and the weak flank whilst your stronger forces lap around. But he's going for a fairly centralized deployment of his Idrians. And somewhere along here we have the UA, which we will find for you in a second. So I'm just going to go and take a closer look at the table and get an exact positioning of all the relevant models and command attachments. So, as Jonas takes his turn 1, let's just quickly have an overview of his and Wout's exact model placement. So Wout has in the center of his army assembled his bunker consisting of Magnus 2 in this position here. He has Magnus covered in the rear by Reinhold and Orin Midwinter. He has the Ayana and Holt pair in the background. And he is flanked by his nomads, and on either side of the nomads here and here we have the 2 renegades. Flanking the renegades on either side we have a pair of Kayazi eliminators, screened by the Idrians out front, flanked by Iris 1 in this particular case. Jonas has deployed his Denegro 1 right here, centrally, probably in an attempt to be able to get a very strong either top of 2 feet or bottom of 2 feet, or at least threatening the assassination and being able to push either zones. So now the Crow's cutthroats have advanced on the right flank, bodyguarding a stalker. Fortunately, this entire flank that Jonas has assembled here in this top zone has stealth, making them essentially immune to ranged fire. Wout is playing a Reinhold, which is significant in that it limits Jonas's ability to be able to place the Negro 1 anywhere, because she can be stripped and assassinated at range. However, it will not help against a unit of crows. Being able to ignore stealth on one model is great when that model has a high value, like the Negra, but is practically useless when you're doing it to kill single warrior models. So the Idrians are going to have a hard time against the cutthroats, I believe. And this line of sight blocking forest is going to make it even easier for the cutthroats to be able to hold this top zone with the stalker standing by in a position to either leap first and then advance, or advance and then leap out of the forest to threaten anything within this kind of a radius. And that includes all kinds of support solos. So we are talking about the Iris, we are talking about the Irish, we are talking about potentially even the Hudchuck, you know, Anastasia de Bray, the Orin. They could all get sniped by one of these stalkers. The second stalker is in the middle of the table right now, taking advantage of the line of sight blocking obstruction in the middle of the table. This particular little pocket could be very useful for the stalker, it having the ability to leap over the building and threaten pieces on the other side, which means that even if Wout gets into a position where he feels safe to contest this particular middle zone by towing in this small section of the zone here, the Stalker will be able to leap over that building and potentially counter that threat. However, Jonas has to be very careful that he does not throw his Stalkers away, because he has very few models that can reliably score this central rectangular zone. Because he will want to have a strong tendency to keep his arc nodes on the flanks to offer him greater versatility and more threat vectors. Meaning that this one particular Stalker may be the only Warjack, the only potentially scoring unit or model that could score this rectangular zone. So he should be careful to not throw it away. In the meantime, the Satixis line of doom has advanced further across the field, now threatening probably somewhere to round about here. Meaning if Wout crosses that particular line, then we are probably going to be seeing a very significant turn 2 for Jonas in terms of being able to potentially get an alpha. It seems unlikely that the Warjacks will cross that particular line in Wout's second turn, but there may be a situation where the Idrians just end up being removed if they fail to take advantage of this and this particular piece of terrain to protect them on the way in. Which is ironic, because usually Idrians fulfill the role of picking people apart as they come in, but against this particular list, the Idrians are going to have a hard time in fulfilling that role, and because of the Crow's Cutthroats and because of the long threat ranges of the Satixis Raiders, they are actually going to be put in the victim role as opposed to the hunter role. So Jonas seemingly reading into Wout's apparent abandoning of the right flank, feeling comfortable to push only moderately in that direction with his bottom unit of Satixis Raiders here, trying to keep a defensive formation with the very clear initial line followed by the second wave with a backup from the third wave of range damage models. This is the kind of formation you would see when you are trying to slow someone who is trying to push very hard down a particular path. This is a layered defense that he's essentially putting up to essentially deny this particular zone for the next 2 to 3 turns. By the formation that you have here, this is something where these models are stacked for offensive capabilities. This is designed to be able to put batches of 4 Satixis Raiders, to initially have one gun line, and then to put batches of Satixis Raiders, like these 3 and then these 3, into particular targets. Once again, we are looking at superiority of numbers on behalf of Jonas being an advantage, in that he is able to already start assembling his concave with the concave being formed at roughly this line, which is at one point going to be reinforced with a very strong push from the sides, either here or here, when the Statixis Blood Witches come in from their ambush, which will probably be next turn. At that point,
Keep on dreaming, my man. Keep on dreaming.
Jonas will want to funnel Wout's forces into these particular gaps here, and then he will want to utilize his longer threat ranges and his feet and the offensive power that comes from that feat to collapse his forces inwards into these two triangles. And so these 2 points will allow him to exert pressure over 2 zones at once, use these scenario elements and the defensive capability to hide his forces that he deems the most vulnerable in this pocket right here.
Oh, they're walking up.
And the main problem he may potentially face is a strong one-sided push by Wout through one of these choke points and out the other side. So if he were to choose one direction and force all of his forces through there, utilizing Magnus 2's feet, and allowing him to carve out a particular niche, being able to, for instance, deploy his Warcaster very aggressively, utilizing this central obstruction, and then using the feat to say that anyone moving in this upwards direction and anyone moving in this lateral direction cannot do so. It allows you to shut down the bottom section of the map from threatening you, whilst you push through onto your opponent's side of the map during your turn with all of your heavy warjacks. This involves finding ways to utilize your battle group to deal with large numbers of infantry, many of which have very high defense. And not only that, you have to avoid being nuked from orbit by a Denegro 1 feet Scourge Cross Cutthroats crossbow bolts to the face at all times, which puts Wout in a difficult position. However, he does have the volume of attacks in the Idrians and the very surprisingly tanky jamming and controlling elements from the Kayazi Eliminators that actually against a list like the Denegro 1 list that we are seeing here can do incredible damage as long as they avoid the Denegro feat. And they will be able to do a very reliable attrition damage to Jonas turn after turn. They will at the same time be able to contest zones whilst being hard to remove because of their high defensive stats, as long as they don't get caught in the feet. If Wout positions the Kayazi Eliminators in such a way to get them feated on and removed trivially by, for instance, some Statixis Raiders, then I think he will have potentially given away a key asset in this particular matchup. Another thing Wout has going for him is the large number of boxes that he's brought, because he has 3 basic heavy warjacks and 2 light warjacks. The nomads themselves, especially with the unyielding from Magnus and their 2-inch reach, will do fairly well in cutting their way through large swarms of infantry on a turn-by-turn basis. It will not be pretty. They will not be able to take any ground whilst they're doing it, which means that before the fighting begins, they already have to have put their foot in those control zones, because chances are they will get jammed up and they will have bodies thrown at them for 3 turns before the Cryx player runs out of models. And they will not be able to move forward or gain any ground whilst they're doing so, because they're going to be spending all of their focus on just buying attacks and killing as many models as possible. So it's important to position the high armor, high hitbox pieces like the nomads into locations where they can contest, especially the bottom and top zone. The round zones, which are the ones that Jonas really wants to be pushing for. He needs to be in position to sit there, bunker down, and just spend the focus that he has to get the volume of attacks to deal with all of these infantry models. And he has to be willing to do this over multiple turns, and he has to be willing to not gain any ground whilst he's doing it. So he has to already position himself before the fight begins in a position so that he will not lose on scenario a little by little every turn, because he can't advance because of the sheer weight of bodies that Jonas is pushing right now.
You want to join my team?
Already in the team, the whatever troll. He's like the epitome of
So,
it's like, no troll's got a new CID, right?
at some point, some incidental chip damage occurred to a warjack somewhere. Jonas is considering the placement for his arc nodes.
He's getting in.
And
Is this guy supposed to be complete down the hill, or is he like...
If he's not completely on it, then he isn't.
Wout, being the classy gentleman that he is, and admitting that when a model is not completely on the hill, then it is not completely on the hill and does not get the benefit. So this particular Idrian finds himself at the mercy of any potential ranged attacks or spells that might be coming their way, which is potentially what Jonas is considering right now. If he could get the arc node within range of that one Idrian, a crippling grasp definitely will make the task of removing the Idrians much easier, and it'll also reduce their overall ability to take table space.
Have this 8-stick, you're
I don't know.
it's not your problem.
I don't know about that.
Players are currently comparing the length of their respective measurement sticks. Wout having a formidable girth advantage. Ironically, after having purchased his measuring widgets from yours truly, because those widgets are actually 30 millimeters in width, allowing you to precisely measure out charge lanes for small base models, but also giving you a significant girth advantage in the widget measuring contest of the game.
Not yours too.
So Jonas is just performing a final check here on all the threat ranges to make sure that he's satisfied. He's just going to plot out his Denegro, his caster placement right now. Denegro obviously always wanting to balance between getting close enough to the enemy to do all of her fantastic abilities and getting too close and just getting killed. And as long as Reinhardt is on the table, Jonas would be behoven to play it a little bit safely. However, he wants to make sure that obviously he doesn't killbox himself in the first place, and secondly that he leaves himself in a position whereby he can have an early activation in the next turn with his Warcaster and a free route to walk in order to position a feat in such a way to catch preferably at least 50 to 60% of Wout's army in his feet for the next turn. So now we are going to see the Crow's Cutthroats dueling the Idrians. Excuse me.
When I told you what to do.
So we're just going to get a top-down view to take an exact look of the casualties that we see. Obviously at this stage in the tournament the shit-talking has taken on a professional level. So we're looking at 8s here to hit these shots against these Idrians. Getting 1 kill right there. So the 8s to hit make this a hard number to roll. However, the ability of the Crows to kill the Idrians when they do hit is fairly reliable. So on average, from a unit, you can expect about 2 of them. And that's probably what we're going to see here. Yeah, we're just going to see the statistical average of 2 to 3 kills. In this particular case, 2 for a unit activation of Crows going up against the Idrians. The question is, how many Crow's Cutthroats did he put into threat range? Well, once his reposition moves are finished, keep in mind this is a 5-inch reposition move, which is a cavalry reposition move. In fact, there are cavalry that wish that they had this reposition move. And if we take a look at the top-down view, at most, in terms of truly exposed Crows, we are looking at potentially this one right here. He could potentially get shot or engaged in melee. And we have the Stalker going in. Okay. So the Stalker is going to jump and go for the Kayazi Assassin. Now this is not an easy kill for the Stalker, and this is kind of a ballsy move because he is putting himself in threat of these forces right here and this Warjack, and he gets the kill. Very nice.
He needed an unboosted 8. I call that lucky. Lucky.
Managing the unboosted 8, he manages to snipe out the Kayazi Assassin.
You don't mind, do you?
And that puts a significant dent in the remaining Assassin's effectiveness, because Kayazi Assassins are a fantastic unit. They do incredible damage. but they only really do their job the way that they're supposed to when there's the two of them. That is what you really want, and losing one is a big deal, to the point where if I'm going to lose one, I might as well lose two. And if I'm going to potentially lose one without losing the other one and it's not worth the trade, then I probably shouldn't expose them further, and I should probably keep them even further back than I already think. There are some units where it is very easy to misjudge inherently what their safety range and their threat ranges are, and how far back you want to keep them. And I think Kayazi Eliminators are one of the units that are very hard to get an intuitive feel for just how far they can go and just where you have to place them for them to be safe and for you to get the most out of them. Yeah. So we have two more Idrians are going to be dropped right here. Oh, we have, an Idrian and two Kayazis, potentially? No. One Kayazi and one has been eliminated. Sorry, one Idrian, one Kayazi, one Eliminator has been eliminated, and the lone Eliminator over here remains, which is good for Rout. He needs that foothold in this middle zone, because he can't just have nothing here, because otherwise this particular bunker will become Fortress de Negra. It'll be covered by little fluffy pillows of Satixus Raiders on either sides, and de Negra will be able to control this area from this particular little bunker. She will have her Stalker to protect the other side of this building. She will have Satixus Raiders to be able to push into the middle, should they have to. And then she will just be able to run the board from this position. So it is very important that Wout finds some way into one of these two funnels. He has to find his way into it and through the other side to get at the vulnerable units that are going to be in this general area of the board. That's where all of the money is going to be for Wout. That's where all of the models are going to be that he really wants to kill to really cripple Jonas's game plan. The Stalker has advanced and has finished off this second Eliminator. And with that, I believe that Jonas has finished his turn with 37 minutes left on the clock. He has managed to position himself in such a way that he is at this point in the game looking to score all three zones, or threatening to score all three zones in the next game. If he were to collapse the Satixus Raiders in this particular zone, he could score this zone. If he were to collapse the Satixus Raiders in this zone, he could score this particular zone. Or alternatively, he could utilize the Gunslingers to score this bottom zone whilst he pushes forward aggressively with the Satixus Raiders. He could also collapse Crow's Cutthroats to hold this zone and score it, whilst the Satixus Raiders push through and try to assemble a screen to prevent contesting by Wout. So he has a lot of options. So Wout is currently trapped in a somewhat narrow wedge-like formation. He has a couple of major obstacles in that he is faced with two Stalkers that are sitting literally among his army. He has a terrain obstacles that he has to deal with that are blocking his line of sight and his charge lanes in these two terrain pieces over here. he has to deal with the fact that the distance from his models to these particular control zones puts him into a situation where he has to sacrifice his damage output in order to even contest the zone. And being the second player, you never want to be put into a position where the enemy can score on your time. So Wout is going to have to commit enough pieces to avoid losing on scenario, but he's going to have to do it in such a way that he doesn't take more than, say, 3 Satixis Raiders to a Nomad, or that he puts his Idrians in such a way that at least maybe 1 or 2 will survive in these little pockets of terrain safety that he can buy himself. I think an important part of that strategy is going to be taking out these stalkers, because these stalkers are going to be, if left unattended, they are going to be a huge pain in his ass. They are going to eliminate individual contesting models. They will be able to get into exactly the right place to take out critical support models, and at the same time they are going to continually threat the assassination. So Wout has now crossed over to the other side of the table. And is measuring the threat range from the side of the board, which would mean that he is considering playing his Hutchuk at potentially sniping out what appears to be a Satixis unit attachment, the Sea Witch, which is positioned right here. Unfortunately, the Sea Witch is, as far as I'm aware, positioned completely within the rubble, which takes her from being hard to kill to being pretty much impossible to kill. Wout, however, at this point cannot deny the urge to bring on his ambushing reinforcements. So we are going to see a Hutchuk play here, the exact nature of which will be determined at a later point in the game. He's probably going to see how some of his other activations turn out first. Maybe take a look at how much damage the Idrians get done, of which we have, I believe, 7 left. 7, yeah. So we have 7 Idrians left on the table, 1 eliminator only. So three eliminators, Kayazi eliminators, have so far been cleared, as have, I believe, 4 or 5 Idrians. So Wout right now is planning out his turn. And he is really put into a position where he has to think very carefully about positioning and the long-term consequences that will have with regards to scenario and scoring, and at the same time getting a maximum efficiency in terms of unit and model activations. This is the kind of list that he is facing against that Jonas has brought is something that you need multiple turns of significant casualties that you inflict on the Denegre list, that you are able to apply in such a way, preferably via range damage, that the reprisal for that damage is minimal. Because you need to keep your forces alive in order to do the same thing again on turn 3, and then the same thing again on turn 4, and only then will Denegre start really getting desperate. So we have some damage going down on a nomad, I believe. So I believe that was a nomad having taken a free strike. Viewers may correct me if I'm wrong. And we are looking at taking out the Stalker. Yep, we're trying to eliminate this central Stalker right here, and Wout is rolling shit for damage. Pardon my French, but he still makes it, despite the horrible dice rolls. It did, however, cost him his nomads, which is represented by this proxy base here in the middle, his nomad's entire focus stack. So now we're activating Hutchuk, who is going to do a Hutchuk special that involves shooting and hitting, before realizing he'd been cheating on clock for like the last 12 minutes or something. No, just kidding. And we're going to be seeing a little bit of damage going into this top Arcanode right here. Yeah, 4 boxes right there. And we're going to be seeing here if Hutchuk can do some serious. There we go. That's a good start. So we're looking at 6 damage from the melee and 4 from the assault shot. And Wout is just explaining to his opponent his strategy of attempting to sabotage Jonas by making his clock run down whilst taking his clock time. But he informs his opponent that he would have been a gentleman about it and left him with 2 minutes to spare before shifting the clock back, which is very generous given the stakes. So the first Stalker has now been eliminated in the center of the field, meaning that Wout's support staff in this central location no longer have to fear for their very existence. However, this flanking Stalker right here is definitely out of control range, which means it will not be able to perform any leaps, but if left unattended is still in a position to be able to potentially walk and kill a significant support solo. So it is going to have to be dealt with, but first we're going to see Orin Midwinter over here activating and putting down some righteous lightning onto the bottom unit of Satixus Raiders. Will he roll the 7? Yes, he does, and he gets unfortunately only 1 leap, which, while rolling terribly, still manages to kill the Satixus Raider that it bounced to. So Orin, having just accounted for 2 Satixus Raiders, Wout is starting to make a dent. And if he can continue this process to a point where he can clear roughly this section here and this section here, he will be able to keep himself out of the dreadful Denegro 1 feat alpha, and still be in a position to not lose on scenario. I think that really is the game plan number one for Wout right now, is to not lose on scenario whilst playing a normal game. And in this case that means, I would say, sacrificing the absolute bare minimum units, models, and putting one Adrian here to contest the top and bottom zone, knowing that you're going to lose it next turn, but with assurances that you will make a dedicated push. So here we go against the Stalker. We're looking at the top view to get a look at the grid on Jonas's side, and the Stalker has so far taken 7 damage, with arms still intact. Cortex not being needed at a point where you are looking at having a caster over here and your Warjag over here. Even with extended range, I would think this seems excessive. So I would not be counting on this top Stalker to be in control range next turn. I would be surprised, given how conservatively Jonas has positioned his Denegro 1.
All plan and play for
All skill.
nothing but nets, something like that, I don't know.
So he's round 10.
So Wout is now revealing another part of his Plan C strategy in order to win this game, which is relying on good dice rolls, which has allowed him to remove a Satixus Raider over here. I'm not exactly sure who made that initial attack, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that relevant. What matters is going to be how he handles this section of the board here, which is what he's going to do right now. He's going to go ahead and think about his options for the right flank of the table. And then he's going to realize probably an important order of activation issue that he needs to do somewhere else across the table. So here we see now the Idrians. So positioning of these Idrians is going to be very important for the long game in particular. Adrians are still, at the end of the day, a fantastic unit at taking on and combating enemy infantry. He is going to want to get a maximum value right now in the way that he places and positions them. He needs to have a good target selection, and he needs to make sure that some of these Idrians survive the next turn. He can't just give him the entire unit for free. So here we go. We're looking at trying to snipe the Arc Node in the middle.
They are also not eager.
And we are looking at failing to kill the Arc Node, failing to even hit the Arc Node, having, I think, just spent 2 combined ranged attacks. Trying to... Yeah, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 models already having done combined range attacks into this particular Arc Node, not having done anything, missing both of their attacks. He's now redirecting his fire with the close range shots into the visible crows, and he's trying to get the hard roll, gets the hard 8 on the Satixus Raider, hard 9, he gets the hard 9 in the back. There's something you won't see most people say every day.
Then they're gonna reposition 3.
And now the reposition placement. So we have 2 infantry models killed and 0 damage done to the arc node. It was a honorable attempt, which if Wout had spiked the correct dice, he would potentially have been able to take out an arc node, giving him a huge area where he does not have to worry about things like arced parasites or crippling grasps. Unfortunately, it did not pay off, and he's forced to reposition to contest the middle and left flank. In his left flank in this regard, for us it would be the top flank, and he is going to now focus on positioning his warjacks. So another almost full unit activation, resulting in 2 infantry kills followed by reposition. So this is the kind of model mathematics you have to deal with when you are playing high defense lists. You have to be able to sandpaper 2 models here, 2 models there, but not expose yourself overly. So we have the Nomad sitting pretty right here. As far as I'm aware, he's looking to be contesting both the middle rectangular zone and the bottom circular zone. If he is not, then that would probably be a misplay on the part of Wout. With his unyielding bonus and his buckler, and the lack of any truly heavy weapons damage on Jonas's part, he should be sitting pretty, at least for the next turn. Oh, we have Arcnode damage. No, we have Stalker damage. We have Stalker damage, but he is not dead. We have a Stalker left on 1 box. Ladies and gentlemen, 1 box. And sometimes 1 box is all that it takes.
Magnus gonna stay put.
To the point where Wout now has to commit a gunshot from Magnus, standing still to aim and missing the boosted aiming hand cannon shot. There's a little bit of discussion right now about sustained attack and automatically hitting.
But you can roll to hit anyway. Because you can do that and miss something.
So there is a apparently a sustained attack from the Renegade, which may have been missed and is now being looked at by the judges to see what can be done here, because obviously the chain attack, the auto hitting attacks obviously potentially changes the game setup quite drastically. I will check the table for you right now.
You can cast okay, so I cast up here. Renegades. Then say I don't think so. You want to so at some point I 1, 2, 3 I win. 4, 5, 6 we are strong.
Which is when the stalking lives.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So what has happened is that the players both have forgotten about sustained attack. That the Renegade, his chainsaw actually possesses this ability, which put us into a situation where we had to check whether or not the the auto-hitting attacks that follow it are mandatory or whether or not they are optional. In this case, I believe it has been ruled that they are optional, and as Wout has forgotten to take these attacks as auto-hitting attacks, he is now faced with the problem that the Stalker is still alive on one box.
My way too long now. I still have some hot girl on girl action. Let's not
forget about that.
Let's go.
So we have apparently some action down south. So we are going to see what Wout does right here. I believe we have a ambushing Anastasia Debray coming into the flank of a Cryx Raider and killing her dead and good. And now Wout is shifting the clock at 30 minutes, having to now live with the shame of having stolen at least a minute of his opponent's clock till his dying day. However, we are all confident here that he will survive. So due to Wout's contesting of all three zones, there hasn't been any scoring, which would be starting this turn. And now we are going to be looking at what is very likely going to be a Denegrifi turn. We have 3 nomads that are all within feet range. The question is whether or not Jonas is going to be able to deploy enough melee attacks from these Cryx Raiders to kill these nomads. And an addendum to that question is whether or not he can kill the screening Idrians that Wout has deployed to protect his 2 most exposed nomads. Now, with the Stalker, the 2 Stalkers being essentially crippled in terms of damage output, it is unlikely that this nomad will take any significant damage, which means that Jonas now wants to make a play for the 2 flanking zones. And in order to achieve this, he has to remove these 2 nomads. And in order to remove these 2 nomads, he has to remove these 6 Idrians. So from a sheer volume of attacks perspective, Jonas is now left with somewhat of a conundrum. Now, he has ranged attacks in the north and in the south to try and clear the Idrians, who, as far as I'm aware, are not dug in. In the south, he has the Cryx gunslingers with 2 attacks each, which should be able to fairly reliably clear these 3 bottom screening Idrians. And with the full unit of Crow's Cutthroats dominating the top, he should be able to clear these 3, and then also, if necessary, this last contesting Idrian over here with the Crows before sending in the Cryx Special Forces, putting approximately 4 to 5 Cryx into each nomad under Denegrifi, which would give him, I think, a fairly decent odds chance of clearing the top and bottom zone, taking out 2 heavy warjacks, and essentially clearing the Wout's remaining combat infantry from the center of the board. At that point, Jonas will probably not be scoring the round zones unless he really commits, but he doesn't have to be scoring them. He just needs to secure them so that he can collapse his somewhat depleted units, maybe like a depleted Statixis unit of 2 or 3 Statixis Raiders. He can just pull them back and use them to score the zone, and then push in with the rest of his forces to prevent Wout from countering. So So Denegra is here now. She has popped her feet. She has charged an Idrian who was unlucky enough to be caught in her charge threat range, which is now going to result in pretty much all of Wout's army getting completely wrecked by this feat. Definitely, I would say Magnus is in, and potentially even Orin Midwinter in the back, and maybe even Ayana and Holt in the back. But this is a very aggressive move on Jonas's part. He's feated now with Denny1. He's looking to close the pincer. So he's probably looking to remove the Renegade, the Idrians, and I believe that may be... No, that's not Iris. That's some solo up north here with these Crow's Cutthroats. I think realistically he can expect to kill 3 Idrians, 4 if he's in a particularly good mood. And if he manages to, there we go, it clears the first Idrian. He has 3 left on the far side of the table that he has to clear. He has maybe potentially a chance to put a shot on this guy, maybe, but he will have to be very careful about how he picks his target. And there goes another Idrian right there, and we're about to see a third Idrian potentially go down the same road, but he has to be careful that he has enough. Oh, bad roll. He's starting to run out of models with line of sight. He gets him. Yep. We have 3 dead Idrians, and the 4th one, roughly a 50-50 chance of this unit getting the 4 kill activation. There we go, we have the 4 kills on the Idrians, and we actually still have, I believe, 3 shots left. So they're just going to be putting some plink damage into the Nomad. Unlikely they'll do anything. Not having the rear arc obviously cripples them in this regard, so this is largely ceremonial and is meant more as an opportunity to get spiky damage rolls like that one just now and do 3 sneaky points of damage to a Nomad that you have no business doing damage to. And then doing another 6 damage. I believe that one may have been a backstrike. However, Denegra's feet really doing some work here, turning a few plink shots from Crow's Cutthroats into something that actually did a potentially significant amount of damage to a heavy Warjack. Jonas really pushing this far flank even more with the reposition move on the crows. He's really trying to get table space beyond the scoring table space, which with this particular unit will pay off almost every single time, purely because of the fact that they have a long threat range and have benefit so greatly from the backstrike bonuses. So very good use of Crow's Cutthroats, which is a very underplayed unit, but in the Negro 1 they do work, and that's what they're showing right here. If you can find a way to mitigate their inherently crappy rat, then you can have a unit that can really do a decent amount of damage, not an overwhelming amount of damage, have a decent amount of damage, but give you an incredible amount of mobility and table control. This, in my eyes, I think this may be one of the best units at continuously circle strafing your opponent, and I think in 2017 that might be one of the most powerful ways of being able to score very aggressively on scenario is to use a unit that is fairly independent, that can just roll up a flank, and that's really what we're seeing with these Crow's Cutthroats. Is they're pushing this way, they are doing small incidental chip damage that way, and then they are rolling around the flank. And if you do that long enough, then you roll all the way around your opponent's back line, and then eventually the assassination just comes by itself. So we're going to go to the top view now to take a look at some damage boxes being marked on this particular Nomad, who is about to get gangbanged by a unit of Satixus Raiders. Jonas is going to make sure to push it in deep and hard, and is just going to let this Nomad have it. And it probably isn't going to take more than another 2 damage rolls. Thank you.
Not that's carbonated, but
It's okay. To get this Nomad off the table. So rolling a perfect statistical average on that last roll there to let us all know he is in fact not cheating. He manages to fairly trivially remove a Nomad that was contesting the middle and top zones, putting Vout somewhat closer to being up Schitt's Creek, and he is not being kind in the paddle sales department. So obviously now the equivalent play, as we discussed here, is to try and symmetrically do this on the bottom flank. So what we're going to be looking at now is the Satixus Gunslingers activating to clear the screening Idrians. In this regard, fulfilling the role of the Crow's Cutthroats with actually a similar ranged output in terms of accuracy and damage, with the potential added control and cloud effects later on for, shits and giggles. The question is whether or not he can reliably kill these 3 remaining screening Idrians to expose this bottom Nomad to at least, I count, 4 Satixus Raiders. And there we go. There we are starting to remove the Idrians that are screening the Nomad, having removed the first one now, removing the second one, and not even having to need to remove the third one, but wanting to just out of a sense of completion and perfectionism. But unfortunately he doesn't make it. So that Idrian will be left to die another day. i.e. next turn. And now the Nomad is going to have to deal with a face full of Statixis Raiders. Wout has already kindly replaced the Nomad with a proxy base, thus saving him the energy of having to lift the model when it inevitably gets killed by the Statixis Raiders, so that he can focus more energy onto the late game, which is going to be his desperate assassination ploy in the next turn. So Jonas, once again feeling no remorse, and just absolutely casually putting his Statixis Raiders into the Nomad, confident in their ability to just completely wreck this guy's face. With the feet, we're not really looking at any difficulty in getting through this Nomad, and as such he's also going to clear the bottom zone, which, as you can see, he cleverly remembered to score with the Statixis Gunslingers in the back.
No, Anastasia's there.
Oh, except for Anastasia. Well, but at least he thought about it. If he hadn't rolled such shit dice for killing Anastasia, then maybe... So we are looking at some damage to the Nomad, a little bit of spill damage from the Statixis feedback, and if we take the top-down view, we can see precisely the lines that Wout is about to draw on his Nomad's card. It's probably going to be about 3 or 4 long lines representing a nice little dice spike on the charge damage rolls of Jonas. So he's hoping that his armor 17 will protect him from the battery that is about to ensue. But as predicted, he's probably just going to draw 6 long lines on his Warjack card, corresponding to the equivalent 5 charge attacks and 1 damage spilling over.
Lacerator, I'm 60. Yes, sir. You have all these complicated rules.
So Wout kindly reminding his opponent that he does not possess any special rules, and that in fact it is Jonas who possesses all of the useful special rules, such as the Lacerator's ability to not give a shit about shields, thus meaning that the Nomad is a mere armor 16, and as predicted, drawing single long lines, just blocking out entire damage grids worth of damage is what Wout is doing. And there finally, for a change of pace, Jonas has decided to roll a mediocre damage roll, which in this situation is still going to go ahead and do some damage to the caster out of politeness sake, and we'll still do a little bit of damage to the Warjack.
It's too much, 17, so offset.
And with a nice casual 11, he is going to finish off that bottom Nomad. And then to add insult to injury, he is going to kill that last Idrian. Probably because I mentioned it earlier and he overheard me, and the sense of completion just got to him. As predicted, the Arc Node is going to tuck into the little safety bunker tucked right behind that obstruction in order to threaten a parasite essentially anywhere going up to here. So this entire side of the board is ripe for assassination. Now that Wout is running out of models to block line of sight to his caster, the potential for a parasite scourge drop is imminent. However, Jonas, being the player that he is, he enjoys getting all of the kill points on the table. Alternatively, he also enjoys crushing his opponent's desire to win so much that they concede. That being par for the course for his performance in this particular tournament today, having won half of his games via concedes from his opponent, which seems to say quite a bit about the power of this Denegro 1 list in just pushing your opponent so hard that they just have to quit. I think a large part in this is the overwhelming superiority of numbers, the vast damage that 2 full units of Satixus Raiders can do under Denegro 1, the incredible flanking and envelopment potential that you see in the Crow's Cutthroats, and the ambushing Blood Witches, which have yet to show up, ladies and gentlemen. Jonas is playing a unit down, right? Unless I'm completely wrong and he deployed them earlier, he is playing without his Blood Witches so far, and they just make the whole envelopment much worse. So as far as I'm aware, Jonas has finished his turn. He has left Wout with very little. We have a Renegade, we have a Solo who is now trying to kill this Stalker, and we have 1 Nomad, his caster, and the support crew. To be honest, this is a dire position for Wout. He has to, at some point now, I believe, he has to commit. And he has to put his caster in a position, and he's doing so now, and he's getting ready to feat. And this is going to be a please don't kill me feat.
I cannot move this way or that way.
Aha, so he has chosen to limit his opponent to only lateral movement, meaning that any movement in this direction and any movement in this direction is forbidden, meaning that Jonas is a significant part. I mean, we're looking pretty much at a feet bubble that looks like this. Pretty much that entire section of Jonas's army can only move laterally across the board, like so. They'll only be able to move laterally to Magnus, meaning that there is a much smaller threat of him getting assassinated. The Crow's Cutthroats may potentially be able to move laterally towards Magnus, but will have to deal with the fact that he is hiding behind a wall, has a high defense because he's a warcaster, and the fact that they have an awful rat. So the assassination at this point seems unlikely. So we have a Satixus who is sniped out. Good evening, and we have Norbert joining us here on the stream, commentating.
Which stream is this? I only go on Top Notch streams.
Only on Top Notch streams. Well, you are welcome to the War Room PL stream, where we're looking at the round 5 of the Masters tournament, and we are seeing.
There's something wrong here. There's only one Cryx player. Something's gone horribly wrong.
Because this is the only matchup that doesn't have only Cryx players in it. So what we're seeing right now is Wout Marschalk, the one remaining non-Cryx player in this top 4.
I think he's secretly a Cryx player, though.
He does. He does have Thexus.
Okay, see?
So that counts.
Yes, of course.
The Thexus counts for at least Cryx curious.
All right, where are we at this game? It looks like 20 minutes apiece.
They have 20 minutes apiece, and unfortunately, it's looking really bad for Wout. So Wout has
Really?
lost 2 of his Nomads. He has lost his Eliminators. He's lost his Idrians.
Yeah.
His bottom flank just collapsed.
Get out.
So this is just entirely empty, right? There's all he has is one Iris, one here, against all of these Satixus over here, Satixus Gunslingers over here.
Okay, there's something else just got removed.
That was a Stalker on one box, which was dived in super deep and was supposed to be like an easy
Throwaway,
throwaway piece.
Yeah.
Didn't get removed.
Yeah.
Huge pain in the ass for
Because
Wout.
Cryx.
Yeah, because Cryx and Wout just rolled shit damage, left it on one box, and so now
Look
he
at
has,
Oren moving like, is that Oren?
yeah, that's Oren. So we got Oren pushing over here right now. He's gonna try and get some work done.
Changed his mind.
I mean, we have, look at this. We have an entire unit of Crow's Cutthroats, not even touched. Like just looking down the barrel of this little support section over here.
What do we got for scenario points here?
Well, scenario hasn't actually been scored yet, but
No scenario points. Wow.
no. So Wout just sacrificed his army to not lose on scenario. So it's 0-0 on scenario, but he just lost 2 Nomads. He had 1 Nomad contesting right here, and he had another Nomad contesting right here.
okay.
Both of those Nomads got feeded on and got jacked up by Satixus Raiders. And
Who's the
Jonas,
caster here?
we have the Negro 1
Dick
versus
one.
Magnus 2. So we got Magnus 2 chilling over here,
Right.
and we got the Negro 1 chilling over here. And so the Negro 1 has this fucking obstruction right here to hide behind,
of course.
with her little arc node that can just pop around the building and drop a scourge onto you and a parasite. With the flanking crows that will just shoot
I
you to
laugh
death.
only because it's so sad.
That's right.
You look.
So,
So how's the Polish audience reacting to this feed here? Let's take a look. Puppet Master Zobi is like on fire. He's got a lot to say. Zobi, you keep posting, my man.
yeah, you know what? They're not very talkative. I'll be honest with you.
No.
They let me know valid information about sound quality.
Okay, of course. Complaints are always high on everyone's lists, right? Gamers, if they don't know how to do anything, they know how to complain.
Yeah, your audience sucks.
All right. Let's keep carrying on, though, regardless of the
Anyway, so
Peanut
you're
gallery.
catching me at the end of a 10-hour shit talking.
Wow. Well, I'm here.
stream.
I'm gonna shake it up again for you because I got my Belgian double beer.
Oh, very nice.
It's delicious,
Very nice.
potent, of course.
Absolutely.
You know. So I have renewed energy after. Look at Jonas's. I mean, look at that. I think he's got lice. I think that's. I'm pretty sure I've seen something moving around in there. Holy mackerel! God damn! When it's so cold up in Norway, I suppose you don't shower as much because
I think he feels morally obligated towards the other life forms that are living in his Heka, that he feels bad about killing them.
Ah, that's right.
It's such a barren, barren environment.
It's a socialist nation, and
well, also like when it's cold in the winter, and you only have a rat to keep you company, then normally
you
you'd
don't
be like
kill
kill
the
the
rat.
rat.
You
But
don't, no.
when it's just you and a rat in an igloo, then you keep each other alive.
I heard someone say in World War I, when the people were in those trenches and it was freezing out and everything, that it was horrible to be frozen all the time, but they preferred that over being warm because then all the bugs that have been hibernating on them would start waking up and biting them and stuff like that.
Oh shit!
No. So apparently, it's better to be too cold than warm when you're in a trench.
All I remember is that apparently they used to piss in their boots.
Right? Why is that?
Every night.
Every night?
Yeah, to make sure that your feet don't, your toes don't fall off. It was the best way to
keep 'em
your
warm,
feet
you mean?
Yeah.
Good lord.
So you take
You know,
a piss
people
in
just don't know how things are.
Oh my goodness. Do we ever?
Okay.
We have it good.
Yeah. All right. So look. Cheers.
So dice are being rolled, and
So what's left to clear out of this circular zone? Because I mean, clearly this scenario has to start happening now, right?
yeah, but I don't know. I
Is
mean,
that a pistol wraith, or is that just
no. That's a gunslinger.
Okay.
So we got 3 gunslingers over here. That these are the ones that are actually going to be scoring this bottom zone right here. So he's just towed them into the zone. He used them to clear some screening Idrians because Wout had screened his nomads with 3 Idrians apiece. But the problem is Jonas came in and he in the top he used the Crow's Cutthroat, and in the bottom he used the Gunslingers to clear the screening Idrians, and then he managed to get
So what Wout got left in here?
5 Satixes.
Wout? No, Wout.
Wout has
In this circle, the lower circle.
oh nothing.
Okay, so we're gonna.
Oh
start
wait, no, wait. He has Anastasia Debray somewhere. I'm pretty sure she's been killed at this point.
Oh, dead. She's out.
Yeah.
So that's it. So that zone is
Yeah. So this whole zone is done.
for the Nightmare Empire.
This zone is currently being contested solely by this nomad, who is about to get gangbanged by these Satixis Raiders right here, and then also these Satixis Raiders right here. In the traditional sense of the word,
As they do.
a casual Friday night spit roast is what we'll be seeing over here.
Oh, I see. Because they had to go around the building.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Well,
So
Wout,
that was-
he's got a brave face on. I'm taking a look at him.
But he
he's
is
still engaged.
calm and composed, and he's gonna play this out through to the end.
He is. He's not
but
going to
to
just
be-
roll over for Cryx.
Absolutely not. I mean, he's already taken such a pounding that at this stage in the game,
He's just kind of numb at this stage.
he doesn't even feel the punches anymore.
No.
No,
He's punch drunk.
he's just going on autopilot, and he's just swinging away blindly.
He's paying attention, though. He's not letting Jonas get away with anything.
No, absolutely not. He's not going to give him anything for free. He's not going to expose himself any more than he needs to. He's managed to make sure, and this is the critical part for the first 3 turns of the game, that he didn't lose a whole bunch of scenario points. So now he has the freedom to take a hit.
Do you think his plan should be to clock Jonas? Now, look. Jonas has got nearly 15 minutes left.
All he has to do is he has to wait for the right time to casually lean over the clock, looking to activate potentially this hut chuck here, and accidentally hitting the
should
clock
go over
button
to the clock and actually just
and accidentally just grazing ever so gently this clock button with his elbow, and then realizing his mistake once Jonas has about a minute and a half left on his clock.
Of course. And then
Which would be the gentlemanly thing to do.
There's nothing you can do as a judge at that stage, I can tell you.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's both for players' responsibility to watch the clock.
Absolutely.
Okay. And if you get Hutchuk getting a little frisky, that's you gotta be on top of that.
That's the thing with ambushing units. You always got to watch out for that. Is they come in from behind and they get all touchy feely.
Did not finish off the damn nomad?
Apparently not.
Look at that. All right.
In other news,
oh look at that. That is some backfield action going on.
Oh, he's going deep backfield. He's pitching all the way to the back line right now, and really getting those backstrike bonuses. And on that note, I need to go to the toilet because I haven't gone to the toilet in fucking hours. I've been
I hear it. You can pee in your boots.
To keep warm.
To keep warm at the end of the
I'll
long
head outside and
podcast.
try it out.
I'll be right back. Okay. All right, this is Norbert, Dr. Norbert, taking over the podcast momentarily. Some dice are being rolled multiple times, it appears. Some hesitation on the fact that there's a double 1 there. Jonas doesn't understand how that could be possible. So he tries it again. Yep. Rolls it again. Nope. There's something happened. Okay. Killed the model. Good. So we'll measure a few things here just to kill some time, make it look a little like there's a contest here. showing off some of his templates. You get some repositioning going. People forget repositioning. It's quite critical in many instances, but you forget in the heat of the moment. A little card check on Wout's point, just double checking that feat, realizing it's pointless, tossing it aside.
Fall in.
Now,
Alright, so Denny
okay, there's some running. Is that Denny? Wow, Denny's actually getting into the mix. She's going over to the far zone. She running, no less. I mean, she's not even caring at this point. She's just gonna go out there, let it. She's feeling completely confident. Oh, okay, well, she needs the hill. She's like, okay, I got a hill here. I mean, it's be silly, even though I really don't need it. Why not just take advantage of it? And it looks like he, yep, there he goes. He's gonna have this unit activate. He's gonna own the unit, and yep, there's the clock flip. So let's write down the control points. Looks like 2 control points. 2 control points. Let's see if Wout gives him the 2. Yep, he does. Hands him back the token. Now let's take a look at his face. I'm gonna lean over to take a look. Okay, Wout looks like he still has a chance, even though most people probably wouldn't say he does. But he looks like, you know, this is the true mark of a champion. You always look like a champion, and that way you are a champion, regardless of the fact that you're getting demolished by Cryx. Okay, we got the chemist is back. Hello, Peter. Peter, I'm sorry you couldn't make it.
Mechanical pharmacologist is the correct terminology.
So I've been telling the people about how Wout is, he's just looking like a champion right now, even though really nothing is going to be possible at this point.
The composure. He just doesn't have the...
Jonas knows it too.
The board position, or the scenario presence, or the attrition lead. Now, Jonas right now has officially begun flexing.
Yeah. Jonas, soon the shirt's going to come right off.
Proving
shirt's going to come
by
off.
providing evidence piece number 1 in his date rape of Robin Malkic.
Whoa.
Which will...
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. That's off the table. But I think
something is wrong because it says Nightmare Empire on his.
Yeah.
I'm the Kingdom of Signa, right?
Yeah, it's all confused right now. But that's what happens when you've been playing 5 rounds and Cryx keeps winning. You get a little woozy in the head. Things happen.
But the story of Jonas's acquisition
looks like a win in the other game. I'm thinking the Polish Cryx player won versus the French Cryx player. Rafael. Rafael won. You won. Congratulations. Okay,
congratulations.
So we found out that in the
Polish Cryx scene,
the other
congratulations.
The other undefeated game, Cryx won. And we're moving along here, back to the game of interest.
Back to the game of interest, not looking into the story of Jonas's questionable acquisition of Robin Malkic's WTC winning shirt.
I see that shirt coming off and swinging over his head with this win.
He could eBay that for so much money. There are many people who would spend good money in the vain hope of
getting back to this
becoming a better player.
Getting back to this game, I think, Wout's probably going to try to think of some sort of crazy, assassination run here.
Oh, he has to. There is nothing left that he can do.
Thanks for the confidence.
Wout just confirmed that is indeed his plan.
It is indeed his strategy.
He's got
He needs to utilize the fact
16 minutes and he's going to use every one.
He needs to utilize the fact that he is playing Magnus 2. And from the very first time I saw Magnus 2 stat line in Mark 3, I thought, holy shit, this guy is a powerhouse.
Yes, that's true.
Of doing,
especially I was talking about earlier, all kidding aside, and he said with the line of sight blocking terrain that's typical now in Europe. Okay, I'm not sure about the United States, but in Europe we usually have some line of sight blocking in the middle.
Absolutely.
And you can use that. Magnus wants to be right behind that thing and feeding and doing his business, and it's brilliant. So So, there's a judge call. Is the judge being called? No, Casper's right there. He's ready to spring into action.
Oh, he's been sitting there for like an hour now.
He looks like a
been
sumo
waiting.
wrestling referee. You know, they're squatting down.
He is like a panther waiting
for his moment. His
moment to jump in on stream and make that all-decisive judge call that gets the crowd just fired up.
They love it. They love it when Casper has to get into the mix.
Absolutely, because then you know you're getting real deep. You're getting deep into this game when Casper has to jump in.
Because he doesn't like to get up for nothing.
No. This is a man who does not like to waste his time on frivolous judge calls. Okay, he is not the kind of judge that you call because you forgot the threat range or you need somebody to check your line of sight. This is somebody that
He's
call.
got Anyo for that kind of crap.
Exactly. He sends out Anyo.
Deal with it.
And then Anyo gives you a circular zone and says, "Good luck, guys," and you go, I'm sure I could use a circular zone,
but this isn't how
it doesn't help with the rules question.
Yeah. all right.
So here we go. So we're looking at Magnus getting committed now.
Okay.
He's about to get stuck in.
Good roll. Whatever
There
was
we
supposed
go.
to happen happened. Yes.
Satixis, remove. Step 1. And this is a 30-step program.
And-
Step 1 involves killing the Satixis. Step 2 has been successfully completed. So we're on step 2
I always
out
say-
of 30.
Better dice than better skill any day of the week.
Oh, absolutely. No, I actually discussed this with Wout at some point during the game, and this is actually one of his
Okay, here we go.
fallback strategies.
Casper's moving in.
Is to roll dice well. Now, Casper has been called in.
Right. Now, the thing is, he has not been drinking at all today, for precisely this moment, because his hands are steady as a rock.
Absolutely.
Surgeons come to him for
This is the kind of precision measurement you only find at NASA.
or ClogCon.
Or ClogCon.
See,
Those
look.
are the only two places in the world that you will find this level of accuracy.
Precision, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so look, so the lasers then, we got a little proxy base going.
We got a little proxy base action ongoing over here. We're going to be looking to draw a line of sight past around here. The question is
Does
who
Casper give it to him?
wants to snipe who?
Because this could be the game. This could be the game. Jonas, look at him. He's when he starts stroking the back of his neck like that, he knows there's a little trouble. It's his tail.
Ooh,
It's
if
his
you look,
tail.
if you look up here, you can see that Wout has made a significant tactical error. He has.
Hutchug is still in the wrong spot.
He's in a position whereby there is no clock counting down for his opponents at this point. He should have engineered a position whereby Casper forgets to pause the clock, and that this entire
A
section,
concession.
and we have a concession.
That's it. Cryx wins. Cryx wins.
The Casper line of sight call, I think, made it definitive that
Really,
Cryx-
it was Casper who decided this game.
He did. The
It's and that's the power.
2
of the
hours
referee.
leading up to
Was really
this point
yeah.
was largely ceremonial.
Yeah.
I think.
Yes,
And
that's
there's
right.
more of a
Everyone
kind
knew
of
it would come down
primate
to-
kind of show of,
That's
of
right.
force.
Beating of the chest.
Beating of the chests,
You know,
before
you know.
the actual authority steps in.
females pretending not to notice, that sort of thing.
Exactly, before the real authority, in this case Casper, steps
Right.
in to
Yeah.
make the
The
deciding.
bronze back of the
herd.
yeah, of the troop.
of the troop, of course.
There's some dice. These are just for fun now.
Absolutely, the dice that were rolled in this game were largely to just commemorate the spirit of
Yes,
gaming.
that's right. Jonas doesn't want to kick a guy down.
No,
Just give him a little what could have been, so he could sleep better at night. That's all.
exactly. He is a kind, solid heart.
Yes. Even though he has
Even
headlights.
though he does play Cryx, and he does enjoy forcing his opponents into concession, which in some cultures might be considered rude, sadistic.
Well, that too.
But I believe that Jonas, with his just kind of Scandinavian
joie de vivre.
joie de vivre and likability compensates for very well.
I don't know, it had 3 people I conceded to me today.
We've just heard that Jonas had 3 concessions handed
3
to him
concessions
out of 5 games.
Out of 5 games.
Out of 5
And
because
all 3 of those concessions were with Denny1, I believe.
fair and balanced.
Yes.
After trying assassination runs.
So what we're really seeing here is an exercise in nostalgia, whereby Jonas is really living the heyday of Denegro 1 before her inevitable demise at the hands of the CID and the internet salt mines. So congratulations to Jonas for making it to the finals.
So the question is how much is he going to drink tonight, considering he's got a big game tomorrow? He's got a very big game. What time does that game start, Casper? Weigh in.
You can play now if you want.
There's an offer to play now.
The gauntlet has been thrown down by none
So
other
the question
than
is
Casper
if
himself.
Rafael, what kind of stamina does Rafael?
I'm not entirely certain, so...
Check with the venue.
However, particular logistics may interfere. However, this is definitely an issue that Casper, once applied to this particular situation, will be able to resolve with overwhelming force.
In a plum.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, I mean, we have to keep vamping until they decide this? Because now it's exciting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is... I think this is a very interesting game because it shows... Because it wasn't Cryx Ghost Fleet.
Right.
It wasn't just...
Your day must have been dominated by Cryx games.
Actually, no, it was Signar.
Oh, okay, Signar.
Surprisingly, there was a lot of Signar, but the Signar they came in big numbers, and they did very well for the first 3 rounds, and then they ran into Cryx,
and that was the end of that.
and then all the Signar got filtered out, and all the Cryx rose to the top, and only Wout was the only player who managed to successfully implement his strategy of not playing into Cryx.
Unbelievable.
So
It's because of the line of sight blocking terrain that he had a chance in this tournament.
Yeah.
Which is good. Those are good
But
rules.
to be honest, I think in this game, I think the line of sight blocking terrain actually helped Denegro 1 more than it did Wout. I think Wout had a problem that he went second. That he couldn't. He was.
He
too
went
slow.
second. Who won the roll though? Denny.
I think yeah. Denny1. Yeah. So Denny won the roll and he got to go first. And his list is faster, so Wout has inherently has a slower list, so he needs to go first much
Right. Whereas
much more badly than Denegro.
Yeah.
Whereas Denegro is like, fine, I have like fucking I have speed 7, I have AD, I have this. Denegro 1 doesn't care, this particular Denegro 1, and that's why I think I really like this build, because this is not just this shows you that it's not necessarily the theme lists that are breaking
the rules.
the balance.
It's our friend Denegro.
Definitely Ghost Fleet.
Bullshit, son. We got you on camera. That's your fault for playing Denny out of theme.
Where's Rafael?
I don't know. And I don't know if he's read it yet. He sent him a message.
Give him a call. I'll bet he's outside smoking. If anybody's read my post about Polish guys, Polish Warmachine players, they smoke a lot.
That is fair.
No, they don't do that. They actually smoke cigarettes still.
We have 8 viewers.
8 views.
8 viewers. Yeah. For some reason, the viewers don't show up on this.
He's outside smoking. If anybody read my post about Polish guys. Good lord, I sound whiny. I need to get.
Don't you hate the sound of your own voice?
I used to do radio when I was in university, but it was early morning, which is good because my voice is much better in the morning. Here we go.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
Hello, welcome to War Machine at Night. This is where we delve into the lesser-known regions of War Machine play.
My first games today were like that.
Those are the best. That's my voice in the morning is much better.
I talk like softly. I talk
the NPR thing.
Exactly.
NPR War Machine.
NPR War Machine. Like for the first 4 rounds this day, and then we had round 5, which was just shit talking.
There he is. Okay, here's the Polish contender. He's throwing.
He's relaxed. He's loose. He's ready to go.
Yeah, but I mean, the question is, does he have the stamina for a 6th game? Look, Jonas is born. Oh, the jacket is coming off! Oh my God! It's late night War Machine play.
6.
Oh my goodness! This is unreal.
Strap up and strap
We're just gonna finish this. They're not going to bed until they know who is the actual Cryx player that deserves the win.
There can be only one, in the most Cryxian fashion of eventual, inevitable cannibalism.
The finals are happening now.
Guys, that second lamp fucks it all up.
I'll go get the list.
So I guess we just keep the live stream going. Yeah. Oh shoot.
This one.
All right, so it's going to be Rafał from Poland against Jonas from Norway in the final. Bam! They've decided to do it tonight. It was meant to happen tomorrow, but they are going to do it tonight. It is Cryx and Cryx. Not sure of the list just yet, but I'm sure there's some Cryx casters in them. I suspect there's some Denny1 on both sides. I suspect there are theme lists involved. Hopefully Casper will get in there to change the terrain around a little bit. We have one scenario left over. Casper, what is the final scenario? Okay, it's the belt, right? The boxing belt. Boxing belt is the final scenario. Rafał is all over it. I would never have remembered that, even though if I was playing in the tournament. But I'm not that caliber of player, clearly. Wout is not wanting to clear the table. He wants to hold on to his moment as much as possible.
What old people do it. Yeah, old men do it.
I'm going to go ahead and tweet out the fact that we're doing the finals tonight. Keep the Americans involved. Maybe some early rising Australasians. I'm going to tweet out. We're going to do the finals now.
Oh, ew. Oh, that shit is gross.
Whoa.
Ew.
Okay. I don't know what happened.
Those guys stole them.
What stole what?
Yeah, we had.
Jesus.
No, I haven't posted them yet, no, but it's okay. I'll post them when they chosen them.
So Jonas just tried to poison me.
What was that?
They call it snoof?
Oh yeah, that stuff's terrible.
Oh,
Just
fucking
a form of chewing tobacco.
horrible.
Yes.
That's what it means to be Norwegian.
Some very nasty shit, George.
Oh man. Oh,
You're still suffering.
ladies and gentlemen, a piece of advice: never accept anything from a Scandinavian person. It will inevitably be some vile, disgusting, quote-unquote delicacy that no one in their right mind would ever partake in if they weren't completely deranged from lack of sunlight.
That's what happens.
That's what happens. They just go crazy. They just go crazy, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, this is a delicious treat. You should try it. It's a dead fish that we stored in a barrel underground for 6 months, and then we all farted on it with our entire village, and we store it in a jar, and you eat it when you get hungry. A fantastic, delicious dish. Please." Get out of
Pictures
here.
of the world with joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Who says I'm not an international person? I will let you know I am a world traveler. I have been to at least 3 continents?
Alright, so whoever wants this.
Yeah,
It's fine. It's fine. Give your list
It depends where you draw the line between Euro and Asia.
Well, I guess it's.
I mean, it's the
certain time zones.
technically it's the Eurasian continent. So Europe and large parts of Asia are geographically the same continent. But I went to Singapore, so that qualifies me.
I was just in
that
China.
qualifies me for Oceania, isn't it?
Okay, sure. You're gonna Merc for them, are you?
Have you tried?
I can. Except I don't make anywhere near enough money to be able to.
Well,
work
you're a new
for
dad now. You've got
Singapore.
other responsibilities.
Well, not only am I a new dad, but I work a fantastic career that actually pays negative euros per month in terms of salary.
Negative.
Did you know that
paid
exists?
them?
That I pay people to let me work full time?
No.
Welcome to the Dutch educational system. So,
What are you preparing for yourself? You're gonna try to recover from that Norwegian thing.
yes, but keeping in mind that my mother-in-law is obviously watching the stream,
Oh, really?
being the huge fan that she is of War Machine, and that my wife may potentially be watching it in a minute. But the beneficial effects of organic remedies, especially when it comes to pain and muscle spasms, especially muscle spasms,
Go on.
is actually overwhelming. And you are actually.
So I'm kind of torn. I really should be going to bed because there's a team tournament I'm going to be involved in tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely.
But
yeah,
this
there's a
this
team
this is quite exciting though. At the same time, Rafael has been playing really well, and he's I don't know if he's got it in him to do this at this late stage. And Jonas is just a nut. He's just.
I think the advantage that Jonas has going into this is that he has drunk the tears of his opponents to such an extent that he is now completely hungry with power.
The thing is he has to actually play a competitive faction now. There's no more
He
like easy
realizes
games.
now, probably for the first time, that he is actually going to be judged on his decision making, and not just on his ability
to push Cryx models
to
forward.
push Cryx models across the board, roll dice, and essentially, regardless of the dice results, still just remove his opponent's models. And he's actually going to have to think about his activations.
I wonder if he'll keep drinking the beer though at this stage.
Oh,
Considering what's
absolutely. I think at this point he is ideologically committed. He's
Right.
already displayed the beer several times on stream.
Yeah, but he hasn't been playing against an actual competitive faction yet. So
But he won't realize this until at least halfway through turn 2, if not turn 3.
Okay.
Right now the rush of endorphins that he has right now from just crushing all opponents before him has probably gotten to his head.
Right.
And he is feeling incredibly confident into this matchup. Mainly based on the fact that most of his opponents this far have been essentially a walkover. Where literally all he's had to do
His greatest
is
opponent right now is overconfidence, I think.
absolutely overconfidence, potentially his own clock, depending on how many.
Well, here comes the remnants of Jonas's last game. Wout.
a shattered Hulk.
He does look a little worse for wear, despite the impressive look you had on camera. Now I take a look at you. It's showing. It's showing what
It's kicking in.
what just happened to you is I think it really
If I put Magnus in a better place and if we get the 2 10s on the spray, try for that one, I get the kill. But I didn't.
You should comment on this next game. I think it'd be cathartic for you.
I think so.
No, because I'm going to bed. Because I predict a Cryx player will win this game, and it's really.
I concur with your prediction. And I wholeheartedly
Good
agree
luck.
with your right to bow out of this particular streaming challenge.
But you got this, George.
Oh, absolutely I do.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take care. I'm going to go for my break. We are going to have a very short toilet and beverage break, and after that we will be back with the final round with the Cryx on Cryx mirror for the final match of the 2017 ClogCon Masters. We're just going to stop the stream and then we'll restart it shortly.